The 16 presidential running mates in Ecuador end their campaign ahead of February 7th general elections. Haitian police repressed popular demonstrations demanding President Jovenel Moïse step down from power. And U.S. President Joe Biden announced an end to U.S. support for the Saudi-led war in Yemen and called for an end to the conflict. Hello and welcome to teleSUR English. I am Estefania Bravo from the headquarters of Quito in Ecuador. This is from the south. In Ecuador, the 16 presidential running mates ended their campaign ahead of February 7th general elections. The day includes early voting of inmates. This Thursday, political organizations scaled up their vote-gathering activities in the last stretch of the campaign. In spite of the restrictions imposed due to the COVID-19 pandemic, candidates are expected to hold several meetings with voters to share their government agenda. More than 13 million voters are registered to go to the polls on Sunday. On this occasion, voters will elect the nation's president, vice president, and parliament. And staying in Ecuador, on Sunday, general elections will be held, as mentioned, to determine the next president, vice president, and parliament members. Our correspondent, Denise Herrera, is in Quito with more.
Good afternoon. We are at the Arbolito Park, where today in Ecuador will end all the presidential campaigns. This is the last time for the all political movement to make their campaigns. In that sense, we can see, as here in Ecuador, how the political movement who is leading the intention of the vote in Ecuador, the campaign of Andrés Arauz and Carlos Rabascal, gather here all their supporters. They are following the political movement of the citizen revolution in this final date of the electoral campaign. As you can see there, they are with flags. They are repeating all the slogan of the citizen revolution movement according with this pulse in Ecuador. All the supporters of the political movement of former President Rafael Correa are here gathered supporting now in these elections the new coalition of the progressive movement here in Ecuador. Today is the last day of the formal campaigns in Ecuador, and all the Ecuadorian citizens will vote this weekend, the 7th of February.
We thank our correspondent, Denise Herrera, for that report. The electoral schedule advances in Ecuador with over 8,000 prisoners casting their ballots. The electoral schedule advanced in Ecuador, and as mentioned, prisoners casted their ballots today. The voting took place in 39 social rehabilitation centers distributed throughout the country and was attended by the electoral authorities and police officers in order to guarantee the transparency of the process. It is also expected that the vote-at-home process will continue on Friday, an option available to the elderly and people with reduced mobility. A leading member of the National Electoral Council of Ecuador has requested that the status of 2 international observers to Sunday's elections be revoked. The request regarding European Parliament member Manuel Pineda and politologist Juan Carlos Monedero was made by the Vice President of the National Electoral Council, Enrique Pita, to the President of the Electoral Authority. The official alleged that the 2 international observers had expressed comments in favor of the presidential candidate for the Union for Hope coalition, Andrés Arauz. The move comes just a few hours before the end of the electoral campaign for the general elections that are going to be held this Sunday. The Attorney General's Office of Bolivia has announced that it is processing more than 15 cases of corruption committed during the de facto government of Janine Áñez. The authorities informed that among the investigations opened in the actions of the coup regime are the irregular handling of more than $1.5 million of procurements in Bolivian oil fields, irregular payments in the state telecommunications company Entel, and in the housing sector. The Attorney General's Office also pointed out that during the de facto government, the state was left defenseless as if officials prioritized political persecution while spending recklessly. In this sense, the use of strategic companies as mechanisms of war was denounced. The Peruvian Congress has approved the elimination of parliamentary immunity in a second discussion. After the virtual debate in the plenary of Congress, the constitutional reform of the elimination of parliamentary immunity received 103 votes in favor, 14 against, and 1 abstention. The Constitutional Affairs Committee indicated that these results are a message to those politicians who are dealt with their justice. The promoters of the bill emphasized that this legislative benefit was used to evade responsibility in illicit acts. In December of 2020, the Parliament gave the green light to this constitutional reform in a first discussion, with a vote yielding a similar result to that reached this Thursday. In Brazil, the Public Prosecutor's Office of the state of Paraná informed by means of a press release that the special team of prosecutors of the anti-corruption investigation known as Operation Lava Jato has been dissolved. The document indicates that the members of the team were incorporated as of February 1st to the Special Action Group to combat organized crime assigned to the State Attorney General's Office. The decision was taken in December by the Brazilian Attorney General Augusto Aras in view of the denunciations of irregularities allegedly committed by the team of prosecutors, among which the politically motivated persecution of former President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva. A coalition of progressive academics and social movements in the United States has submitted a 32-page policy paper to President Joe Biden recommending he cut off ties to the Brazilian government of Jair Bolsonaro. Our correspondent in Brazil, Brian Meir, has more.
A coalition of progressive academics, social movements, and activists in the United States, made up of hundreds of people, has just presented new U.S. President Joe Biden with a list of policy recommendations for Brazil. The U.S. Network for Democracy in Brazil is concerned about 10 key areas, which include clampdown on religious freedom, genocide being committed against indigenous peoples, economic considerations that are driving up inequality in Brazil, and expulsion of Quilombola residents who are descendants of former escaped slaves from the area around the Alcantara space station. Although the document, which is 31 pages long, doesn't directly refer to U.S. involvement in the 2016 coup and in the rise of President Bolsonaro, in the arrest of former President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva through its partnership between the U.S. DOJ and the Curitiba Public Prosecutor's Office in the Lava Jato investigation, it does seem to recommend that Biden undo much of the damage that was caused by U.S. involvement in these processes.
We thank our correspondent Brian Meir for that report. In Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro called for the holding of a bicentennial Congress of the Peoples with the purpose of strengthening regional integration as well as promoting social struggles. The activities began with the 29th anniversary of the civic and military rebellion led by Commander Hugo Chavez on February 4th, 1992, and will culminate on February 27th, commemorating the 1989 social uprising known as Caracazo. This Congress is an opportunity for grassroots leaders and social movements to draw up strategies to form a new roadmap for progressive forces. The governor of Miranda State will be in charge of the initiative promoted by the National Assembly, the Ministry for Education, and the Ministry for Youth and Sports. The Venezuelan population is also commemorating the 29th anniversary of the civic military rebellion known as the Day of National Dignity, which marks the civic military uprising led by Commander Hugo Chavez back in 1992. The date is seen as representing the rescue of Bolivarian values and the return of dignity to Venezuelans, snatched away by the decade of the neoliberal political system that governed the country from 1958. The attempt to the power of February 4th, 1992 marked a historic step in the independence and sovereignty of Venezuela and would lead to the triumph of the Bolivarian Revolution led by Hugo Chavez years later. Venezuelan National Assembly member Diosdado Cabello recalled the uprising of February 4th, 1992 as part of the struggle for the true independence and sovereignty of the country.
We are here today, standing before this great man, our gentleman, Commander Hugo Chavez, as on every February the 4th, we come here to honor the leader of the Bolivarian Revolution, and when we honor this gentleman, we honor our people. We honor the Bolivarian Revolution. We honor those men and women who that day, completely selflessly, with absolute selflessness, left everything behind, everything at home, our children, our family, our lives. Some might say our military careers. We left them behind. We put our fear behind us, and we went out to accompany a dream.
Cabello also emphasized that the 1992 civic military rebellion sought to free Venezuela from the domination of U.S. imperialism.
We did not rise up against a democratic government. We rose up against imperialism, which was ruling here. None of us were offered money to rise up. We are not mercenaries. We did it with our hearts, with our souls, with our spirits, convinced of changing the destiny of our country. And we did it, as Vielma said, regarding that February the 3rd, with a smile on our faces, with joy, with firmness. It is no small thing that we did. Comrades, let us feel proud.
Haitian police repressed popular demonstrations demanding President Jovenel Moïse step down from power. Police attacked citizens who mobilized in the city of Port-au-Prince this Thursday to reject the intention of the head of state to extend his mandate beyond February 7th. Activists stressed that the move by Jovenel Moïse violates the constitution while denouncing that they are being killed by state security forces for defending their rights.
The police is killing us. They ask for money to protect us. We go out to look for money to give to them, and the police kill 5 or 6 people anyway. We are Haitians. We are going to show Jovenel and Prévert that we are real Haitians. We are asking for help. Help us to protest, because we have no power, no matter how much we do and no matter how much we fight. They keep killing us. No matter how hard we fight, we have nothing.
By demonstrating, we are asking for justice. We ask the world to please look at our case with this demonstration. We are asking for a call of attention because the police is not doing anything. On the contrary, they seem to be in cahoots and they are killing people, and all this is happening because of the same plot. It is not 1, not 2, not 3. It is the whole crowd that is asking for justice. It is the whole Haiti that is asking for Jovenel to go, for the police repression to stop. Can you understand this? We are asking the world to pay attention to us because you are killing us. You are killing your people.
In Barbados, Wednesday marked the start of a 2-week lockdown to curb the spread of COVID-19. During this national pause that has been called, only essential businesses will be allowed to open, and a dusk to dawn curfew has also come into effect. Authorities are asking Barbadians to stay at home and only exit if absolutely necessary. According to police public relations officers, there were no reported incidences during the first day of the lockdown. To date, Barbados registers over 1,600 COVID-19 cases and 14 deaths. U.S. President Joe Biden said on Thursday that the war in Yemen has to end, pledging to terminate U.S. support for Saudi-led offensive operations and to halt arms sales. Ahead of the Democrats' first major foreign policy speech at the State Department, the White House announced that President Biden is ending U.S. military support for the war by its Saudi allies in Yemen, as promised during the election campaign. The end of U.S. military support for the Saudi-led coalition fighting in Yemen reverses former President Donald Trump's policy of providing logistical assistance and selling huge amounts of advanced weaponry such as precision-guided bombs, signaling Washington's new approach to the war, which has led to the world's biggest humanitarian crisis. The Biden administration is also appointing a Yemen envoy.
This war has to end. And to underscore our commitment, we are ending all American support for offensive operations in the war in Yemen, including relevant arms sales.
And speaking at a State Department this Thursday, President Joe Biden also announced his intention to massively increase the cap on annual refugee admissions to the U.S., which fell to a historical low under Donald Trump. In line with that campaign promise, Biden says he will set the cap on admissions as part of the country's refugee resettlement program at 125,000, representing 10,000 more than the current fiscal year. Signaling that his administration would not be majorly different from that or of his predecessor, President Biden said the U.S. would confront what he described as the authoritarianism of China and Russia.
We will repair our alliances and engage with the world once again, not to meet yesterday's challenges, but today's and tomorrow's. American leadership must meet this new moment of advancing authoritarianism, including the growing ambitions of China to rival the United States and the determination of Russia to damage and disrupt our democracy.
In France, unions representing teachers, public servants, and other workers mobilized on the streets to demand better working conditions. Groups of workers massively took to the streets in Paris in the framework of a general strike called for this Thursday, demanding better salaries and adequate working conditions in times of the pandemic. According to trade union spokesperson, this is the second protest in less than 2 weeks in which workers from different sectors are experiencing their discontent. They warned that precarious labor conditions are directly affecting incomes and consequently livelihoods. Some 20,000 demonstrators, according to the CGT union, march in Paris for employment and the defense of public services. Among the demonstrators, a nurse from the Saint Antoine Hospital denounced her working conditions and a lack of resources, which has led her hospital to only take care of COVID-19 patients at the expense of others.
Today is the continuation of several mobilizations that took place during the month of January. Mobilizations by sector, by profession, so it's a bit of first step in these mobilizations to say that social issues are paramount, and the government must stop giving priority to the economy in the sense of aid for business, and that it should focus on workers, students, young people.
We are happy to be civil servants and to invest ourselves, but now we no longer have the rights to holidays. We only have the right to 25 days of holidays, whereas before in every town hall we were entitled to a little more. That was also what allowed us to accept such a low salary, and now we find ourselves with nothing. No longer the right to reward days, no longer the right to pension benefits. We have the right to nothing at all.
Soldiers in the Democratic Republic of Congo patrolled empty villages in the Diju region on Wednesday, which has been living under the threat of violent groups for months. Violence in the northeast has forced thousands to leave their homes and live in refugee camps. About 12,000 people have fled violence in Jugu. While residents demand solutions, security, and peace from the government, the governor of Ituri province has said peace in the region is difficult to achieve due to the presence of different armed groups and the proximity with South Sudan, where the situation is unsustainable. One of the last violent events in the province left 46 dead in a single attack in January. According to the international organization, 5.2 million people are internally displaced in the DRC, representing the largest number in Africa. South Africa has in the recent past made headlines for all the reasons. Xenophobic attacks on migrants have even prompted government to send envoys to countries of the migrants and apologize. But now, a church based in Musina, the last town before Zimbabwe, is changing the narrative. The church has been housing children from migrants from all over the sub-Saharan Africa since 2008. But now, lack of funding and new refugee laws are standing on the way of this project. teleSUR's collaborator Matuba Machati has more.
Bridge border posts may be just a line dividing South Africa and Zimbabwe, but this is a gateway to a better life for migrants from all over the African continent into South Africa.
People from Malawi, from Congo, from all over Africa, they use the bridge border to come to South Africa. This is a big international port. Even the cargoes, when they go to Malawi, they go to whatever country, they use Great Bridge border.
Upon entry, many children get lost or enter the country alone. Some of them end up at this shelter.
They don't have parents. Their parents are far. Some of the children, they were separated on the way with their children, with their parents. Some are often from their countries.
The Uniting Reformed Church in Musina, South Africa, has been housing children of migrants for more than a decade now through this shelter. This was an initiative by the parish pastor, Professor Lisiba Matsaung, who recently died of COVID-19 related complications. But the work he started continues even though there are difficulties, especially where funding is concerned.
At present, we are depending on people who are giving us humanitarian assistance. People can bring food parcels. Some community members will bring something like this. We don't even have a budget for electricity or gas.
Funding is not the only challenge they face. The South African government has introduced laws that make it even more difficult for undocumented migrants to get asylum.
They said you must have a passport, you must have some document to show that at least you are from this country. It's impossible. If I'm right now, I cannot take anything. I mean the purpose of being protected by another country is because you are prosecuted from your own country.
Caring for migrants is a thankless job, but these South Africans are determined to give South Africa a good name to her neighbors. From Musina in South Africa, I am Matuba Machati.
We thank teleSUR's collaborator Matuba Malachi for that report. And with that, we've come to the end of today's news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And don't forget to follow us on our social media accounts. We are on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram as well. For teleSUR English, I am Estefania Bravo. See you next time.